All right, welcome back to America's News Headquarters from Washington. I'm Elizabeth Brand.
Yeah, if only you could have heard what was going on in the break. I'm Leland Vittert. Here's what's making news right now. President Trump heads to the heartland to campaign for a high-profile House special election in Ohio. A lot of folks looking at this as a preview of November.
Plus, new details coming out from the investigation into a young Russian woman being accused of being a Russian spy. We're going to speak with her attorney.
And a judge laying down new rules on DACA, what that means for the president. President Trump enjoying his summer vacation right now in New Jersey. A little later today, he heads to Ohio for a special election that takes place on Tuesday. He's stumping for a GOP congressional candidate. Rick Leventhal joining us now with the latest before the president departs New Jersey. Hi, Rick.
Hey, Leland. The president has made a point of aggressively campaigning for Republican candidates in key races, and he isn't letting his vacation stop him from fundraising and traveling to rally support in pivotal swing states. Of course, on Thursday, he traveled to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, on behalf of Republican Congressman Lou Barletta, who's running for Senate this fall. And tonight, the president flies to Columbus, Ohio, to lead an event for Troy Balderson, who Vice President Pence joined earlier this week. Balderson, a state senator, trying to snag a seat in the 12th congressional district in a special election Tuesday. Balderson faces Democrat Danny O'Connor in a traditionally Republican-leaning district, with a race too close to call, according to polls. This morning, the president tweeted twice in support of the candidate, writing, "Troy Balderson, running for Congress from Ohio, is in a big election fight with a candidate who just got caught lying about his relationship with Nancy Pelosi, who was weak on crime, borders, and your Second Amendment, and wants to raise your taxes by a lot. Vote for Troy on Tuesday." If Thursday night was any guide, the president will likely attack Democrats. He'll likely attack what he calls fake news and celebrate his successes in office, including the thriving economy.
Our economy is soaring. Our jobs are booming. Factories are pouring back into our country. They're coming from all over the world. We're defending our workers. We're protecting our Constitution.
So again, the president flying from this area, northern New Jersey, up to Ohio later this afternoon. Leland, that rally scheduled to begin around 6:30 p.m. tonight.
Live coverage on Fox News before, during, and after Rick Leventhal in New Jersey. Rick, thanks.
Sure.
All right, week one of the Paul Manafort trial wrapping up its testimony from one of the accountants who says she falsified tax documents for the former Trump campaign chair. And the special counsel's Russia investigation is widening as the president is doubling down on his rhetoric at rallies across the country. Jillian Turner with more. Boy, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
All at once.
With Russia.
Yeah.
So, Liz, Manafort's tax and bank fraud trial kicked off this week in Arlington, Virginia, just outside the nation's capital. Yesterday, his former accountant, Cindy Laporta, took to the witness stand and testified she'd filed tax returns she believes may have contained false information. She also acknowledged that doing so probably amounted to criminal activity. Laporta confessed she'd sensed Manafort was lying to her about his income, specifically where all the money transferred into his consulting business was coming from. This was the first time a witness at trial admitted to potential wrongdoing. The Mueller team's now trying to prove Manafort improperly listed millions of dollars of his income as loans in order to avoid paying income tax, and that it was kept hidden from the IRS in illegal overseas accounts. Meanwhile, President Trump creating Russia investigation news of his own this week when he escalated his attacks on what he calls the Mueller witch hunt. On Wednesday, he took to Twitter and called for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to stop the investigation, quote, right now. That tweet prompting immediate outcry from journalists and lawmakers on Capitol Hill, accusing the president of obstructing justice. But the White House told his critics he's just venting.
The president is not obstructing, he's fighting back. The president is stating his opinion, he's stating it clearly. There's no reason he shouldn't be able to voice that opinion.
That same evening, he also defended his highly criticized recent trip to NATO, claiming his motives for pushing NATO member countries to contribute more of their GDP is actually all about Russia. Here's the president recounting a conversation he had with NATO's Secretary General.
He said last year alone, because of what I did the previous year, we took in $44 billion more. You have to understand, this is money to guard against Russia.
The national security team has, for now, put the president's forthcoming meeting with Putin on ice until after the Russia investigation wraps up. Liz?
All right, Jillian Turner breaking it all down. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. As we approach the midterms, top national security chiefs are saying American democracy is, quote, in the crosshairs. Those are the words of Homeland Security Director Kirstjen Nielsen, as multiple government agencies work together to stop Russian election meddling. Joining me now, former Reagan campaign director and Great America PAC co-chair Ed Rollins. Sir, thank you for joining us, friend of the show. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good afternoon.
Okay, I want to play two pieces of sound for you. They were at different times, sort of in a timeline. I want to start with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and then I have a second one for you, and then I want to get your reaction. So take a listen.
Sure.
President Putin, did you want President Trump to win the election, and did you direct any of your officials to help him do that?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the U.S.-Russia relationship back to normal.
Okay, so we digested this piece after Helsinki. If you fast forward, the president was in Pennsylvania. This is what he said not more than a week ago. Listen here.
Now we're being hindered by the Russian hoax. It's a hoax, okay? I'll tell you what, Russia's very unhappy that Trump won. That I can tell you.
Okay, so we're getting, the voter may be getting some mixed messages. I want to get your take when you look at these two pieces of information. Obviously, they were a couple weeks apart, but what is a voter to make of this?
Well, first of all, Putin's always lying. Putin has lied forever. Russians have always tried to mess around in our elections and other people's around the world. And what you have to understand is that they're not for Trump or Hillary or anybody else. They want chaos. And the more chaos they can create in America, the better it is. The best chaos they can do, and they can certainly manipulate some of these elections that are very, very close, is to give Democrats back the House of Representatives and let them create chaos with the president. Right. Their goal is not winning and losing. Their goal is chaos.
They want more chaos. The president is in Ohio today. He will be rallying tonight. In the past couple rallies, he has brought up Russian meddling in the election, the hoax. We've heard it time and time again. Do you suspect that we're going to hear that tonight? And is that what you think he should be talking about?
Well, I think you ought to be talking about the positive things that he's created in this. We have a booming economy. We have lower taxes. We have a great job type things. I think this is a bone in his throat, and obviously he wants to talk about it all the time because he feels it's unfair. But at the end of the day, voters out there and intensifying your own voters is going to be very, very important. If the Democrats win this election on Tuesday, which is a dead even race, they have to get then 22 House seats out of 60 to basically, there's 60 competitive House races today on the Republican side, 5 on the Democratic side. So for them to win 22 or 23 if we win on Tuesday is not a great number. And so I would say at this point in time, the Democrats have to be slightly favored to pull this thing out. Right. And the president ought to talk about his accomplishments. The House members ought to be talking about the president's accomplishments. That's an agenda that's going to help a lot of working Americans.
No, I think your point is right now more than ever, every seat matters, which is why we're talking about the 12th District of Ohio, which I suspect a lot of us didn't think we would be talking about this Saturday. I'm curious about the timing. If Mueller does wrap up his investigation, I mean, there's a myriad of outcomes that could come out of that, clearly. But no matter what, it could be a talking point and it could be a distraction right ahead of November. Certainly we don't know that, but it could be. Are you concerned about that?
Sure, I'm absolutely concerned about it. I mean, it's been a distraction since Inauguration Day, and I think to a certain extent the president's done a very concerned about it. I mean, it's been a distraction since Inauguration Day, and I think to a certain extent the president's done a very effective job of moving an agenda forward in spite of the fact he's been under constant scrutiny and constant attacks on his people. I think the key thing here is anything that energizes Democrats is going to affect the Republicans, and we have to go out and energize our voters. The key thing today is who's got the more energized base. Are the Republicans who voted for Trump in 2016 going to turn out? Certainly Democrats give every indication with all the women's marches and what have you that they're going to be an intensified voter.
Energy is definitely the wave that we're seeing, and you'll see people say it's going to be a blue wave, a red wave, whatever wave it is. My question is, what issues should candidates be focused on? And the reason I ask that is because we even had the lieutenant governor of Ohio on, and she started pivoting towards the economy. That's what voters talk about. She didn't once bring up the Russian meddling in the election.
No one can quite. I'm sorry. No one can quite understand all the confusion on the Russian thing. I mean, we certainly know that they were involved. We certainly have people under indictment in Russia. But the key thing here is Americans are going back to work in record numbers. The economy is moving. There's a big tax cut that's benefiting everybody. And those are things that matter to ordinary people. In mid-year elections, there's way less voters who participate than a presidential election. So it's a question of getting your voter turned out, intensified, and the issues that are going to make matter. And certainly we see in some of these polls, Hispanic voters are now doing better among Republicans because of the high employment rates for Hispanic workers. Those are the targets.
Well, there was some focus and a lot of direction in your answer, so we'll see that in the candidates, and we'll see what happens at the rally tonight. Ed Rollins, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
A former Trump campaign aide is now at the center of the investigation into an alleged Russian spy, Maria Butina. Washington Post reporting former National Security Director for the Trump campaign, J.D. Gordon, was in contact with Butina ahead of the 2016 elections. With us now, Butina's attorney, Robert Driscoll. Viewers of the show will recognize you from other things as well. Was she in contact with this guy?
Yeah, I mean, she did what people in Washington do. They met at an embassy event. They went out for drinks once. I think they went to a Styx concert. Shout out to 80s rock fans such as myself, and left it there.
You make it sound also sort of fun and completely innocent. It's clear that Maria Butina was trying to ingratiate herself and get involved in American politics. Fair?
I think she was networking, like plenty of 20-something Americans do. They go out for drinks, they go to concerts with friends.
The question was her networking directed at only helping her or helping the Russian government? True?
Well,
that's the question.
I think it was directed towards helping her and helping benefit U.S.-Russia relations. I don't think she was doing anything at the direction of the Russian government.
So this was out of the goodness of her heart that she was doing all this?
Well, I think it's the same reason people network. You never know what's going to come of it, where your next job's coming from, anything like that.
Yeah, but I don't spend a lot of time networking with Russians. I don't think you do either. We probably don't spend a lot of time, there's not a lot of 20-somethings who spend a lot of time at the, Congo embassy parties thinking that, gee, that's really where I want to better, U.S.-Congo relations.
But remember, she was a master's student in international relations at American, and who had a focus. She wrote essays on U.S.-Russia relations.
Is she a patriot of the motherland? Is this somebody who's a sort of a diehard Russian who has this love for Mother Russia and wants it to have better relationships with the United States? Or where's her motive here?
Well, I think somewhere in between. I think she loves the motherland. She loves Russia. She's a Russian citizen.
Okay.
But I think she was somewhat oppositional in her gun rights group and other things that were not directly in line with what the government wanted. And I think she wants better U.S.-Russia relations.
You just said something interesting. Nothing happens in Russia that the Russians don't want to have happen. Vladimir Putin runs that place like a police state, and we're supposed to believe that this young woman who was very connected to the Kremlin at the same time, and to Kremlin bankers, was allowed to advocate for positions that the Kremlin has taken pretty hard stands against when it comes to gun ownership and guns rights. Those two things don't seem to make sense.
But you got a couple of significant reports through the Duma. Her backer there, Alexander Torshin, also supports gun rights in Russia, which is, again, not a popular position, and one I doubt Putin would sign off on at the end of the day.
Well, but couldn't the argument be made that's exactly why he's signing off on it? This is exactly the kind of operation that you run if you want to try to begin to gain influence in Republican circles?
I think that's just reading too much into it. I mean, I think that the reality is no one's undertaking a 5-year operation to take a few snapshots with people at events in Washington. You can do that without any operation at all.
Oh, okay, you say you're reading too much into it, but a big part of your defense of Maria Butina has been, she's sort of she would have been an idiot if she was a spy because she used WhatsApp and she used Twitter and she was fairly, haphazard in her tradecraft.
Well, there was no tradecraft. That's why it would be haphazard. If she did everything publicly, I mean, when your movements are documented on Facebook and everywhere you are is on Facebook and Instagram, and you're publicly talking about everything you do, that's not very consistent with a covert operation.
John Solomon over at The Hill has an interesting op-ed in which he basically says that the FBI gave her enough rope to hang herself and sort of let her go around documenting all of her meetings on Facebook, and then pulled the rug out from under her just now before the 2018 midterms. Surprise, surprise. You think he's onto something?
Well, I think there's a broader question at stake here, which is there a criminalization of essentially networking and lobbying? I mean, here's a woman who came to the U.S. a couple of times on a visa to say, I'm going to an NRA event. And
then she went to an NRA event.
Network, and then went to an NRA event. And so then when she comes back over as a student and goes to another NRA event, at what point does this become criminal? This is something the government's completely aware of. They apparently have had eyes on her for some time.
Maybe I'll ask you a different question. Is it criminalizing sort of becoming friendly with the Russian government because there's certain parts of the Justice Department that wants to make the Russians the big bad actors? Is this political on part of the DOJ? You think there was other calculations?
It's hard to know, but it's also hard for me to say. I don't think it's partisan politics as much as I do think the Russia angle is kind of affecting everything in this town right now. And I think there's a bit of a kind of oddly a second Red Scare coming from kind of the Democratic or liberal side, whereas the last Red Scare was more of a conservative Republican.
So you're leaving the door open to that?
I mean, who knows what motivates people, but it's hard to imagine that a foreign student from another country, a foreign national, would be treated the same way and be essentially imprisoned for advocating better relations between the U.S. and that country.
All right. Bob, good to see you as always. I think there's going to be more developments on this. We'll have you back to talk about it. All right. Good to see you. Liz?
The Trump administration got some news on Friday. It's another roadblock when it comes to ending DACA. A federal judge ruling that the government must fully restore the program. Allison Barber is live with all the details. Hi, Allison.
Hey, Liz, this decision from Judge John Bates is 25 pages long. It is detailed, and it is certainly not something that the administration is going to read and say that this is good news for them. In it, he says that the administration failed to justify their decision to end deferred action for childhood arrivals. Bates says the Department of Homeland Security provided a memo explaining their decision, but that the memo fails to elaborate meaningfully on the agency's primary rationale for its decision, the judgment that the policy was unlawful and unconstitutional. The judge then goes on to say that while the memo offers several additional policy grounds for DACA's rescission, most of these simply repackage legal arguments previously made and hence are insufficiently independent from the agency's evaluation of DACA's legality to preclude judicial review or to support the agency's decision. The judge, John Bates, is an appointee of former President George W. Bush. In April, he became the third judge to rule against the administration's decision to end DACA, calling it unlawful. He gave the government 90 days to appeal that decision. This latest ruling upholds his ruling from April.
There's a couple of ways to digest this opinion. I mean, on the one hand, you can report somewhat fairly, that this judge is giving a bit of a stinging rebuke on the question of DACA itself. But the last paragraph of the opinion is the key. The judge said this court is not holding that DHS cannot terminate the program. It's holding that you didn't give us a sufficient reason.
Judge Bates told the administration that claiming a prior policy is illegal with post hoc policy assertions is simply not good enough. The administration has 20 days to appeal this most recent ruling. Liz?
All right, Allison Barber with the very latest. Allison, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Coming up, we're going to speak with the former president of Chrysler about President Trump's push to freeze President Obama's fuel efficiency standards. Will it help or hurt consumers? Plus, millions in the Northeast dealing with some major flooding. Is more rain on the way? Adam Klotz is monitoring it all from the Fox Extreme Weather Center with a preview. Hi, Adam.
Hey there, Liz. It seems like the rain is never ending. We've seen a ton of it from the mid-Atlantic, now stretching up into New England. These are some very heavy showers that will cause some flooding. I'm going to be timing it out and tracking it coming up in a little bit, Liz.
All right, we'll see you soon, Adam. And we're going to find out who is stronger, or what is stronger, an SUV or an angry rhino. You don't want to miss this. You probably don't want to find out.
A local retailer.
Extreme weather all over the world as Europe is dealing with a major heat wave this weekend. The Portuguese as well. Take out this video from Lisbon. Thousands of beachgoers flocking to the water, trying to stay cool amid that deadly heat wave. Temperatures there, 114 degrees, already killed 2 people in nearby Spain. Emergency services issuing a red alert for the countries, placing extra medical staff and firefighters on standby, and maybe some extra beer for those on the beach.
And the wacky weather is not stopping there. Folks in Sullivan County, Pennsylvania are seeing more rain than normal this weekend. Reports from the area say that baseball parks are looking more like lakes. Conditions for those driving around are slippery. They were hit with well over 2 inches yesterday, and there's still more to come throughout the entire weekend. Now, with more on the rain hitting the Northeast and weather across the country, we bring in Adam Klotz with the Fox Extreme Weather Center report. Hi, Adam.
Hey there. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm talking about more soggy weather. It just continues, and it seems like it's never going to stop. It's been going here for days, and that's what we're still looking at. Now, some of the heavier rain that was in the mid-Atlantic has moved off, running now up to the Northeast, and these are some big, heavy showers. And there's been some reports of flooding across portions from New York State, running all the way up towards Boston, and the entire Northeast is seeing this very heavy rain right now. It is eventually going to clear off, but we're looking even as of right now, areas in the green. These are all flood watches, and we've had a couple of flash flood warnings that have popped on and off here in the last couple of hours. Currently, those are winding down a bit. This is going to be pushing offshore, and you are going to get a break a little bit later in the overnight hours, as that'll eventually make its way offshore. Now, obviously, the other big story continues to be what we're seeing out west with this fire weather. The place where they really need the rain, unfortunately, they're not getting it. Everything you're looking at here in the pink, this is a red flag warning, which means the humidity is low, the temperatures are high, and the winds are strong. This is fire weather, and we're seeing it from across portions of Northern California, stretching across Nevada all the way over towards Colorado. A lot of wildfires across the entire western half of the country. And the bad news here is it just stays hot the next couple of days. Your forecasted highs for today across portions of California getting up close to triple digits. It stays that way on Sunday, and it gets even hotter yet on Monday. We're looking at a high in Redding on Monday of 102 degrees. Guys, that humidity stays low, and unfortunately, there isn't any rain in the horizon either.
Wish they could take some rain from the East Coast. Adam Klotz, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
President hitting the campaign trail this weekend. A lot of fear in Ohio. We'll take a look at what's happening there tonight. Plus, live pictures from Tel Aviv as protests against a religious discrimination law have a lot of folks wondering what this means for the big democracy in the Middle East.
To its lowest rate in almost 50 years.
All right, Ted, I'll start with you because those are some things to brag about, but we're not always hearing that on the trail. We're hearing a lot about Russia and some other issues, so why not more of this?
Well, I think that every candidate that's running for Congress, the United States Senate, should be running on the economy. You know, we had 327,000 new manufacturing jobs. That's more manufacturing jobs over a 12-month period than we've seen in the last 50 years. As the president said, we have the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. These are the kind of things that the American people care about. If you remember James Carville, it's the economy, stupid. And the more people start looking at exactly what these policies have been doing to the U.S. economy, the more they're going to want more of it. And I think that's the ticket for all of the Republicans across the country to be running on.
All right, Antoine, I want to hear your response because some of the Democrats are saying, listen, it's not enough, or they're saying there's reports of it being stagnant, or they're saying, listen, look at the tariffs. There's voters are getting hurt right now. What do you say? What do you think?
Well, let me first say this will be the most consequential midterm election of my lifetime because there's so many things up and down the ballot that literally will determine how we chart a path forward in this country. I think it is political malpractice for the Republicans to automatically assume that the American people are satisfied with some of the things this president has done. Forget about his rhetoric, forget about his tweets, forget about the fact that he wants to play footsie and cuddle with Putin. I'm talking about from a pure policy standpoint. He has failed on immigration. He has failed on simple things that matter to the American people. If you ask farmers in rural America who now will receive a $12 billion bailout all because the president wants to play political games, look, middle-class working families in this country are not happy with this president, and that's why the momentum will be on the Democrat side going into the midterms.
Okay, you said this is one of the most consequential midterms of your life. That being said, midterms, the turnout is historically low. The party that is not in power is usually, ahead of the game. Historically speaking, they have an advantage. So that being said, I mean, how are you going to get the base energized? How are you going to get people to care about those issues when I know you say the economy isn't doing well, but for some people, they're fine. They may not even want to go out and vote.
Well, no, people are frustrated. Look, a 4.1 GDP does not mean things are good for you and me. That does not translate to middle-class working families who felt like they were slapped in the face because of a tax scam that was jammed down their throat by the Republicans. Look, now, I will say this to my party. We have to have a consistent and a very thorough message that will connect with voters in this country, and it has to be practical policies that will drive people out to the polls. And just being anti-Trump will not do that. Fortunate for us, issues like health care will be important in this election. National security will be important, and simply protecting the most sacred thing in our democracy, and that's our right to vote. Those things will be important going into the midterms.
I want to let Ted chime in because it's not my job to respond. One thing you said sort of stood out at me when you said 4.1 GDP doesn't translate to you and me, doesn't translate to the middle class. Ted, what do you say?
Yeah, it translates to those people who have the lowest unemployment rate in the history of the United States. When you're looking at African-American unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been. Hispanic unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been. 830 new jobs in the last 19 months. During the previous 19 months of the Obama administration, those same numbers were at 26,000. So you can't say because of Obama. Obama had 26,000 job growth in the previous 19 months. That's a difference of 804,000 jobs under President Trump.
I'm getting
because of the regulation reform, because of the tax reform, because of capitalism and free markets actually working rather than the socialist policies of the last 8 years. That's why the economy is booming.
All right, Antoine, I'll give you 15 seconds, and it's not my say, it's the computers. You have 15 seconds.
It's cute for you to reherse the talking points. The bottom line is this president has done a good job of being a maintenance man. This job has done a good job of being a maintenance man for the economy that was set forth by Barack Obama. 92 months of straight record job growth. People are doing good, and he's maintained that.
The American people know the difference between 26,000 jobs in 19 months and 803,000 jobs in 18 months.
I appreciate it. You both are very passionate. And for the record, there were quite a few facts thrown around there, so I do appreciate it. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope to have you back.
In November, Antoine.
Appreciate it.
They listen to you better at home? Come on.
No, nobody listens to me. I'm used to it. You guys go at it. Be sure to catch Fox News Sunday tomorrow for the latest on the Russia investigation. Chris Wallace has an exclusive interview with Senator Marco Rubio. He'll have better control of any debate. Check your local listings for time and channel, and tune into Media Buzz tomorrow. That's at 11 a.m. Eastern. Howard Kurtz's interview with former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski.
And a Fox News alert, some good news for some folks in Lynchburg, Virginia. The evacuation order now lifted for the area surrounding Lynchburg, Virginia. Locals allowed to return to their homes. 150 homes were at risk of being covered up in 17 feet of water as there was a dam that could potentially break. The dam was opened at 9 this morning, and College Lake is already in the process of, I didn't know this was a word, dewatering. I guess that means the water level is going down. We'll get back to you on the definition of dewatering. Meantime, repairs will be done on the dam and the roadway come Monday.
The president's administration is releasing new standards for fuel efficiency in our cars this week. We're going to tell you how that could impact your family. And we'll show you moving images from the funeral of an Arizona state trooper who lost his life in the line of duty.
To my son, I love you so much, infinity, forever and ever. So proud of him. He'll be in my heart forever.